House Republicans bracing for a political showdown right now with the White House and maybe themselves. Their new budget proposal promises to balance the budget in 10 years. Part of how it does it is by repealing Obamacare and reallocating money from programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Tom Cole from Oklahoma. He is a member of the House Budget Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us.
John, thank you.
One of the interesting debates right now happening in Washington, and much of it is within the Republican Party, is between the so-called defense hawks and the so-called deficit hawks. People who want a strong defense right now are calling for an increase in defense spending. A lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill are, and the White House is too. This new Republican budget, however, says, no, we're not increasing defense spending, even though the overall military spending will go up. Let me throw up a graphic here which explains what's going on right now. The White House on the right there is calling for an increase in defense spending to $561 billion, along with $51 billion for what's called the emergency fund. Now, the House GOP is saying, no, we're not going to increase defense spending, but we're going to put $90 billion into the emergency fund, so we'll have more spending on military. Isn't this the kind of gimmickry that House Republicans have fought against for years?
No, not at all. It's actually a flexibility. Look, war is a very difficult thing to calculate the exact expenses on, and we want to provide maximum flexibility. If you actually look at total military spending over 10 years, we do almost $400 billion more than the president. And this year coming up, we're actually just about at the same point. We propose about $613 billion in total military spending, the president about $612. Now, we get there in different ways, but I would expect that given the different priorities the two parties have.
You get there with the use of the emergency fund, which even Republicans like Senator John McCain say a little bit sketchy to do that. Raul Labrador says a little bit sketchy to do that. And earlier today, here on New Day, White House Political Director David Seamus says, a little sketchy to do that. Let's listen to what he said.
That now is the time to make sure that we're making the investments in education, job training, and manufacturing, as well as making sure that our men and women are adequately prepared for any contingency that arises. We can't resort to these gimmicks and loopholes, which unfortunately, using Republicans' own words, is what they did.
He just called it gimmicks and loopholes once again. Congressman Cole, what you say in your own press release, you compare this to what every household has to do when it balances its own budget. If I'm going to increase my food budget, by saying, I'm taking it from the garage budget, but I'm not really taking it from the garage budget, how is that not a gimmick?
Well, it's not a gimmick at all. First of all, for the White House, talk about gimmicks when they propose tax increases that there's no way they could get Democrats to vote for, let alone get through a Republican Congress, is just rich beyond belief. But in terms of looking at our budget, again, we want to provide maximum flexibility. That's what the Overseas Contingency Operation Fund does. It's not an emergency fund. It's what actually finances, for instance, military operations in Afghanistan, military operations against ISIL in Iraq and throughout the Middle East. So it's a real fund. The expenditures are real. If we don't use it all, we don't have to use it, but it also provides the military with the flexibility it needs for training and equipment. So, again, we just have a different point of view of how to get there, but the spending levels are essentially the same.
This budget calls for the full repeal of Obamacare. You confident that the president would sign that?
No, I don't think so, but he doesn't have to sign the budget. The budget's a negotiating document. The president's issued one. It doesn't have to pass Congress. We're issuing one. I suspect our Senate counterparts will issue one. Then we'll negotiate and work the different appropriations bills and law through. Look, we've been able to change Obamacare. People forget that. About 8 times that we've actually gotten the president to sign laws that have lowered the cost about $62 billion. But would I expect a full repeal? No. But would I expect Republicans to back off from that? No. I mean, that's been our position consistently throughout the debate. I certainly wouldn't abandon it in a negotiation up front.
You're counting the savings in the repeal of Obamacare that you're calling for, but you don't count the reduction in revenue that certain taxes associated with Obamacare provide. Is that also not a little bit of gimmickry?
No, it's really not. Look, we arrive at our numbers the way we arrive at our numbers, and these are taxes that are on the books that are unlikely to be repealed in any event. As you point out, you have to have a presidential signature to get it done. So to say revenue is going to automatically disappear when you're not sure you can get it through, I think is probably not the wise thing to do. But look, I would just tell everybody to sort of step back and remember a budget, whether it's produced by the president, the Republicans in the House, or the Republicans in the Senate, is is not law. It's where you begin. It's an aspirational document. It lays out your vision, where you would take the country if you could, and it's where you begin your negotiation from. But do I expect that we'll win every single battle? No, I expect we'll have to compromise. We've done that for 4 years now. We've lowered the deficit from $1.4 trillion to under $500 billion. So we've got a pretty good record, and we've passed our budget for 4 in a row. We can hope the Senate can do the same this year, and we'll see where the president ends up.
I think we all appreciate your willingness to have these discussions, Congressman. It's important to have that on Capitol Hill. I think we envy your degree of flexibility that you provide yourself there. Can I ask you something about a story that's happening on Capitol Hill right now? Aaron Shaw, congressman from Illinois, resigning following a series of allegations about money being spent by his congressional office, also from his campaign. You know, it's a money issue right here. What's your reaction to his resignation?
Well, you know, first of all, I know Aaron. I think highly of him. He's been a very effective member up here. I like him. I'm very sad that he's been overtaken by this situation. I don't have any information beyond what's in the press about the ins and outs of the financial issues, but no, it's a human tragedy, and he's a talented, good guy. He's a young guy. I hope he works his way through it and comes back.
What's your message to members of Congress coming in on both sides of the aisle here? I mean, you know, no party has a monopoly on bad decisions here. What do you say to a congressman to keep him to walk the straight line?
Well, you know, frankly, you're under scrutiny all the time. You accept the public trust when you hold these offices, and you ought to hold yourself to the highest standards. And frankly, if you don't, it tends to catch up with you in some ways. In this case, maybe, again, Aaron's a very young guy, and I'm sure he's learning some really hard lessons right now. My heart goes out to him, but you just simply can't afford to live beyond your means, and frankly, the public purse is something that you need to guard and take care of. You're being entrusted by taxpayers with it, so you got to set an example, frankly, not taking advantage.
Congressman Tom Cole, great to have you with us. Really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, John.
Allison.